Agent Romanoff. You miss me?
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
Captain.
Your Highness.
Captain, big fan, Spider-Man. Hey everyone.
Hey guys, and welcome to Film Artsy, your number one source for all things films and movies. And over the years, we've seen Chris Hemsworth really be involved in the making of all of the Thor movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and has really become an integral part of the MCU when it comes to things like the Avengers. And along the way, we've seen Chris Hemsworth really be involved in going that extra mile and doing a lot of the individual stunts that are needed for these films to really be at the caliber that we've been able to experience, especially the more recent ones. So today we thought it'd be interesting to take a look at just how Chris Hemsworth, when in any movie, whether it's the MCU or not, kind of goes the extra mile in working on doing his own stunts, or where he can do his own stunts. Of course, just like any actor in the MCU, he does have a stunt double, but it is also really cool to see when we see the actual actors themselves kind of stepping up to the plate and doing something a little bit more involved than just acting. And it's actually really unique here. So let's go ahead and jump into this. But real quick, if you want more content like this on maybe a faster basis, make sure you guys are following us on Instagram. There's a link in the description down below. We post a ton of content over there. Okay, let's go back to the video. First up, we have some of the stunts that were done in Chris Hemsworth's newer movie, Extraction, which are kind of interesting to take a look at.
You do stunt works and fight scenes and hopefully achieving something that no one else has done before.
Everybody wants to see their heroes, like the actors doing the action. The challenge becomes how far can we push them safely? So we're trying to make sure we connect the action to the story and make sure that the action is story-driven.
We can also see a little bit of some behind-the-scenes moments when it comes to Chris Hemsworth when he was practicing alongside his stunt coordinator.
So big spin, 3 spins. I'll do one first.
Okay? Yeah. Do the same, go nice, open, get up there.
Didn't stick the landing, but I think I did the...
Yeah, but just a twist we've got to probably do in the air.
Oh, you don't want it on the mat?
No. Okay.
It's pretty close, though.
Similar.
That far away.
Yeah.
When we look to Avengers Endgame, we definitely know that Thor had one of the bigger roles, and if anything, Thor actually was kind of this new and evolved version of the Thor character we'd been seeing in the older Avengers movies, like the first two. So it was really cool to see this version of Thor, the kind of Thor Ragnarok forward version of Thor, work behind the scenes when they were shooting stuff for Avengers Endgame.
We really have an amazing team around.
So what's up? You just here for a hang?
He's a very depressed past.
Don't you think I'm down there wallowing in my own self-pity, feeling sorry for myself, hoping to be rescued, hoping to be saved, but you're wrong, okay?
The Avengers pull him back in to have a sense of duty. He finally comes around and he's a full-on Avenger.
Look at the first couple steps.
I thought I was cooking. I thought I was going so quick.
On the flip side, we can see some of the earlier stuff that Chris Hemsworth was involved in when they were doing behind-the-scenes stuff for the first Thor movie with some of those fighting scenes.
When he's not moving, and then billow and move, fly with him when he's fighting. The physicality and the movement is a huge component of these costumes. You can draw fabric till the end of the earth, but we wanted a cape that was going to behave so that it wasn't done in post-production. And we evolved the cape in the workroom, and that fed in with the way the artists were drawing, and we ended up with a cape that does do everything we wanted. It's not done in post-production.
Also, if you look to Thor: The Dark World, which is kind of one of the most controversial movies when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as honestly this film didn't really perform as well as maybe some of the other movies in the MCU did, but it is cool to see Chris Hemsworth attached to wires doing some of the stunts.
So we think that's it. Loki betrays him. And that, of course, in and of itself becomes a trick just for Malekith. And we realized they were working together.
Both characters, Thor and Loki, are exposed for who they really are. And I think they surprise each other.
Then we can see even more moments of Chris Hemsworth along the way doing some wired stunts. Now, one of the biggest turning points when it came to the character Thor definitely was when Thor Ragnarok rolled around. And it's always cool to see Chris Hemsworth's thoughts on what it was like playing Thor for Thor Ragnarok, as we know from other interviews that Chris Hemsworth has said that Thor Ragnarok really changed his perspective of the character and turned this character into something that maybe he was kind of ready to be done with, into a character that he wants to continue to play for a long time.
What I haven't seen before, I think, is this sort of force and this sort of power by one single individual, you know, and it's not only his sort of intellect that manages to sort of navigate his way through this and outsmart us, but it just his sheer force and strength is something that none of the Avengers or anyone in the MC universe has ever really encountered before. So, you know, that was, I think, on paper, you know, an exciting thing to sort of embark on, and also even just reading the script, kind of racing to the end to work out how the hell are we going to beat this guy.
This one might not be as much of a stunt, but we do know that this one came a little bit later in filming. Actually, they filmed it much later than when they first were filming all the stuff for the first Avengers movie. But it is cool to see them all back together filming the shawarma scene, and the whole cast of the Avengers is suited up. And just looking behind the scenes for this is pretty cool.
We are shooting one more scene tonight.
And we are at the corner of near Pico and Doheny in a shawarma restaurant with all the Avengers in costume filming one more shot.
We also have interviews of Chris Hemsworth talking about how much of an impact Avengers Infinity War has had on his life, and he's kind of talking about this alongside his co-stars Chris Pratt and Anthony Mackie.
This journey playing this character has paralleled my life with all the sort of big events of my life, as well as the big events of this character. And, you know, I think, oh, my son was born in, you know, the Avengers 2, and my daughter's born in Avengers 1. Or, you know, like, you don't often get to sort of have an experience like that and play a character over and over.
It's just pile on pile on pile, and because these stories continue from the movie before, it's just a continuation.
Then on the flip side, it's always good to appreciate some of the really cool things that stunt doubles do to kind of bring these movies to the next level, and it's always fun to see Chris Hemsworth alongside his stunt double shooting stuff for Thor: The Dark World. Then we get this awesome moment of Chris Hemsworth riding around in his throne chair, which is just kind of this behind the scene clip from Thor Ragnarok.
50-50, and is that it, or not? Like this?
Yeah. Was that I play the Grandmaster. Yes, I'm the head of Sakaar, and it's colorful, and even though I've lived since shortly after the Big Bang, 14 million years old, the only thing I like to do is to play games, really. And I've gladiatorial. When we meet me, I'm in the middle of my gladiatorial.
And one of the biggest sacrifices Chris Hemsworth probably had to do when it came to playing Thor or for the MCU was definitely when he had to cut his hair for Thor Ragnarok, as they were kind of doing this different look for the character. And it's just funny because Chris Hemsworth had been known for his iconic hair as Thor for such a long time, and they really did decide to mix things up here, and it's kind of interesting. So here is the interview where he talks about that.
Cut his hair, yeah. I'd done it a few times, this character, and it kind of got very sick of myself as that character. And I called up our director and I said, look, I'm sick of myself, and he said, so am I.
Well, who's this guy? He's a great...
Taika Waititi. He's a New Zealand guy who's one of the greatest directors out there. And so we basically decided just to kind of reinvent the character in the world and do something completely different.
So what do you guys think of Chris Hemsworth playing Thor? Do you want to see him continue as his character for a long time? Or do you think that eventually his time is going to be up, similar to what we saw with Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr.? Let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video.
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi. See you guys.